Latif. Today we'll be presenting the case of Maybank Islamic Bharat versus M10 Builders. With me, I have Brother Hassan and Mojib for this presentation. In our case today, we will look into statements of facts, legal issues and arguments, judicial reasoning and decision, and critical analysis and implication. This case was first tried in High Court and then in the Court of Appeal, Putrajaya. The decision for this case was made on 2016 in the Court of Appeal. The case involves a dispute over a muraba overdraft facility granted by Maybank Islamic Bharat to M10 Builders. And the legal questions surrounding this case are whether the muraba overdraft facility was Sharia compliant and legally enforceable, whether the bank could claim Tawhid, and whether the consent order admitting liability binds the parties. When we look at the statement of facts, by a letter of offer dated 31st July 2003, the bank granted multiple Islamic banking facilities totaling of RM 14 million to the first respondent, which includes a BBA term loan for 2 million, muraba overdraft for 3 million, Islamic bank guarantee for 4 million, and MOD against progress claims for 5 million. The facilities were structured based on the muraba financing principle. The parties executed a master facility agreement together with an asset purchase agreement and asset sale agreement, under which the bank purchased and resold project-related rights to the customer at a marked-up price. The facilities were secured through legal charges over landed properties and guarantees provided by the second respondent, ensuring the bank's ability to recover in the event of default. The MOD facility, originally set at 3 million, was restructured and increased to 5 million through a second letter of offer dated 8 December 2004. The revised terms of second LO required the facility to be repaid in a lump sum within a 12-month period, subject to annual review by the bank. The utilization of the MOD facility remained conditional upon the execution of new APA and ASA, highlighting the continuing importance of asset existence and transfer in the muraba structure. This restructuring was formalized through a new facility agreement and fresh APA and SA dated 23rd December 2004. The underlying assets for these transactions were 4 parcels of lands. On 5th May 2006, the restructured MOD facility matured. The bank issued a third letter of offer on 20th May 2009, reducing the facility limit from 4.5 million to 3.5 million, which dissatisfied the first respondent. The first respondent formally objected to the reduction and proposed alternative terms, attempting to renegotiate the financing agreement. In response, the bank issued a fourth letter of offer incorporating the respondent's counter proposal. However, the respondent refused to accept the revised terms. Instead, the respondent insisted on relying on the earlier second letter of offer and rejected the need to execute new APA and ASA, creating a fundamental disagreement over the applicable contractual framework. Prior to the present case, the first respondent had initiated earlier legal proceedings, which resulted in a consent order dated 27 March 2013. In that consent order, the respondent admitted liability under the MOD facility, but continued to dispute the quantum owed and timeline for repayment. The earlier suit was subsequently withdrawn with liberty to refile, and it was agreed that the issues would be determined in the present proceedings. The bank then commenced the current action to recover the outstanding sum, while the respondents counterplanned for wrongful reduction of the facility and sought declaratory relief and damages. The parties engaged in extensive correspondence and meetings in an attempt to resolve the dispute, but failed to reach an agreement. The respondent disputed the outstanding amount claimed under the MOD facility. The respondent also requested a return to earlier terms, particularly under the original arrangement. A key issue was the imposition of a tawhid, which the respondent challenged. The bank offered conditional cooperation for refinancing requiring settlement of arrears and fresh APA and ASA execution. A central dispute was whether the second letter of offer superseded the first or whether earlier terms still applied. Due to unresolved disagreement, the bank terminated the MOD facility. The bank then claimed an outstanding sum of approximately 4.6 million. First, the High Court dismissed the bank's claim and counterclaim, and it was then taken to Court of Appeal, where the bank allowed the appeal and dismissed the respondent's cross appeal. Some of the determinative facts in this case is that the different underlying assets in APA and ASA, consent order admitting liability, failure to execute new APA and ASA post restructuring, default in repayment obligations.
All right. Thank you, Sister Maria. Okay, I'll proceed with the legal issues in arguments. So there are a few legal issues just for the sake of time. So I'll just go through very quick. The legal issues, and the legal issues first, whether the MOD was Sharia compliant or not. And then the second issue, whether the use of the same assets was, is it allowed or not? Because the bank and the company, the builder, they have different interpretation of the assets. And then also the Bank Negara guidelines about Marabaha, whether it's applicable in this case or not. And then whether if the Contract Act should be applied or not, because if there is Sharia issue, whether the contract is still binding under legal Contract Act or not. In the entitlement for Tawif, sorry, not WAC. So when it comes to these issues, both parties have different arguments. So the bank had arguments that the MOD, the facilities was based on what they call it, Bayanaina. It was not normal Murabaha or MOD contract. So in that case, use of the assets, the same assets repeatedly, like selling, buying that. So it's okay, it's allowed. Therefore, the contract is valid. But also, the bank claimed that the contract, even there is small Sharia issue, but it's not definitely invalid. It's still enforceable under the Contract Act of 1950. And then the bank is entitled for taweez because it's already clearly stated into the agreement. So and also the builders, the company accepted that initially. But what the respondents or the builders company says, their argument is that the case or the contract is not Sharia compliant because there was no separate APA and ASA. They say that it was just one contract, no separate APA and ASA. And the same asset was used multiple times, so in money transactions. So in that case, it's not allowed if the banks not own the asset and sell it again, buy it and sell it to different buyers and sellers. So that's not allowed. So therefore, the contract is invalid. And also the builders claims that what they call it, the ta'weez was not justified and it was not properly calculated. And also the builders company says that it was too late for the bank to bring this case to the court because it happens to be in 2006, 2003, but then it was brought to the court in 2013 or 14. But when it comes to the key authorities, what the bank, the appeal court use it as a reference. So the past cases. So there are three cases like the bank. The first case where the bank used to, what they call it, to use as a reference that even any contract that has a small Sharia issue but still enforceable under civil law. This is the case reference. The second case, CIMB, the bank used it that as a reference for Bayalena. Bayalena is acceptable in the Malaysian context. And also the Shamil Bank. That bank case was used to say that even the court still can apply the civil law even there is a small Sharia issue. And then, of course, court prioritized the contract. So what the Court of Appeal concluded, they say that the MOD was valid contract and there's Sharia issue, but it does not make the contract invalid automatically, and it's still under legally binding and enforceable under contract. But there are some judges like concurring views. So this judge, he agrees with the Court of Appeal decisions, but he has some small points to add it, some small disagreement, like the Sharia issue. So the judges should refer to the CASAC, Sharia Advisory Council for the Sharia issue. They should not just make decision by themselves. And the bank proved its case, and customer clearly owe the money. So that's the judge also agree with that. In Tawiz, the judge agree with the Tawiz, but it says it was too much, it was unfair. And then coming to the next judicial reasoning continues. So the court used these steps to make the decision. So first, the court says, what is the nature of the contract? High Court, which rejected the appeal from the bank, they say that what they call it, it's normal murabaha. While appeal court, when they review again the appeal, they say it's by al-aina. So therefore, High Court was saying, oh, in murabaha contract, we cannot use the same assets in multiple transactions. That make it's invalid under Sharia. But appeal court say no, it is by al-aina, so it's the same asset as long as it's separate in complete transactions, it's okay to be used. And then the assets reality, the High Court says they misunderstood the asset was the same, but appeal court say no, it was different assets. So initially the asset was just a usufruct, and then later the asset was just what they call it, the land, 4 piece of land is. So, but and also the banking negara guidance, which is about the murabaha transaction. So the appeal court says this guidance came after the case happened. So it came in 2009, and the case happened already. So it's not relevant. So we cannot use that. And also the legality. High Court says the case is invalid as per Sharia, but appeal court says under Contract Act it's still enforceable. And then coming to the judicial reasoning. So continue. So Tawiz. So High Court rejected Tawiz, while appeal court under BNN guidance, they allow it. So the bank, and it was, they show the calculation, and bank has the right for Tawiz, for the late payment compensation. And also consent order. So the appeal court already said that the customer or the builders, they already agreed in the contract, they agreed that, well, they gave the consent. So they had no right to reject that. And also the limitation used. So High Court, the claim was too late. High Court says, oh, it was too late. But appeal court says there's no such limitation as long as it happens, saying that they have valid reason. And counterclaim was rejected by the Court of Appeal, and the customer has no strong reasoning for that. In final decision, bank won. Counterclaim was rejected. In the court ordered that there should be compensation, ta'weed, and costs that should be paid. And those are some Sharia issues in fatwa, in what they call it, standards that are being referenced in this case. Sorry, not Sharia issue, Sharia principle, which are murabaha, bayalana, ta'weed, and fatwa, the SEC resolutions about bayalana, which is permissible in Malaysia, they use that, referencing that. But about IUFI and that standard, there's no direct reference, since the IUFI is not in favor of bioalana, so therefore there's no reference to IUFI in this case. Yeah, that's all from me, and I'll pass it to Brother Hassan. Thank you.
So before we evaluate the court reason, so we have to first ask a question: what does the current Sharia law actually require? We need to draw the comparison between the authoritative framework, which is the Bank Negara, and the Malaysian court under the Section 75 of the Central Bank of Malaysia Act on 2009, and the IOFIN Sharia standard, which govern the Islamic financial transaction in the GCC and the internationally. So the first one is about the permissibility. On the permissibility, under the BNM, SAC, SAC, is permissible. The CAC has accepted bail-in since 1998, confirming in the second edition of the Sharia resolution in the Islamic financial Islamic finance in 2010, following Imam Shafi's opinion. On the other hand, IOFI Sharia standard number 8 requires a genuine third-party supplier. The two-party circular structure of bail-in is excluded from its scope. So it means that they did not accept this together with the International Islamic Fiqh Academy in 2012 resolution. Also about the ownership. So on the asset ownership, the CAC, following the BNN 2012 circular, requires that the APA and the SAA be documented separately with time span to evidence sequential, not simultaneously, but in sequential. Also, we have the domestic convergence between the opinion, which we have the BNM, and also the fact that requires contract to be executed independently, mandate time prime, and also instruct banks to remove mandatory buyback clause. So then we move. Okay, then we move to the Sharia Standard 3 that prohibit bail-in entirely. So that it talks about the IOFI standard number 3, like I said, that on the default in payment by a debtor, it is currently a form. Category says that it is not permissible to stipulate any financial compensation as a penalty clause for delay in debt payment. What is the implication of this for the Maybank case? The implications for the Maybank case are direct and stark. However, under IOFI standard, the proximity of the 2 million claim will have been entirely impermissible, not merely oppressive, as Amit Sultan JC described it, but categorically prohibited. Although the BNM framework has no counterpart in the international standards, which is the IOFI, this is not a clear matter of interpretation. It's just a fundamental category divergence between the Malaysian CAC and the IOFI, together with the GCC and the rest of West Africa. Together, we have the academic, we look at it from the academic angle. So we look at it from civil procedure and also in the judicial conduct and regulatory challenge. We look at it from the case of Ahmed Sultan JCA, which allows the structural trap if the dependent plead case is flawed in the law. The court cannot assist in reducing the damage, even if the claim is unjust or unconscionable. This critiques the system as a customer, mainly the small scale and the small and medium scale without specialized Islamic finance legal advice, often fail to pay on quantum reduction using the BLM guidance. What is the implication of this in general? So we categorize this into doctrine and policies and stakeholders. Under doctrine, we have the civil law governs the Islamic contract, which says that it governs the Islamic contract agreement. Sharia non-compliance alone is not illegal, confirming this by reference to MC 2003. Also, under the CAC, referral is mandatory, not discretionary. This can be found in the section 56 of the Act, which creates a mandatory duty to consider CAC publish rulings or refer to specific Sharia question. On Bill INA, each completed a ACA and APA and ASA create a fresh valid bail INA. Same assets may be transacted multiple times. This is Malaysian specific doping. Also in policies, we have BMN must enforce a own quantum caps and also mandatory pre-contract disclosure, clear product labeling by BNM, and SAC and IOFI engagement for cross-border convergence. On the stakeholders' perspective, we have it categorized into four quantums. We have the bank, the civil court, and the customers or the borrowers, and the BNM and the SAC. Under the bank, we say that the explicitly label the Sharia contract type in every LOC. And also to execute fresh APA, and on each restructuring, this MOD failure to do so will root cause for this entire okay. So on the civil court, in the case of CMB 2009, whenever a Sharia question arises, there should be a proportion where everything is being, there's no pressure from ACA, and also on BNM, so active investigation post judgment complaints under the FISA 2013 to publish or clear guidance distribution between the bail inner and robber for legitimate use. So what is the conclusion on this? We have it categorized into three, which is on the Sharia compliance, on the contract enforcement, and the reinforcement of imperatives. So the first one under the Sharia compliance is bail-in is a valid muraba suspect under Malaysia CAC rulings. The CAC is the sole authority on Malaysia, which we all know, under the court bypassed this by the CBMA 2009 in law. So BNM guides cannot operate on this. So we have another one, which is on contract enforcement. Sharia non-compliance does not void Islamic finance contracts under the Contract Act of 1950. So, and the last one among them is to reinforce. So the court exposes but does not resolve. So the three structural failures here is first, the information asymmetry between the banks and the customer. The second is the peeling trap that stipulates oppressive towing from judicial review. And the last one is the Malaysia divergence from the IOFI and IFSB global standard on bail-in.
Thank you. That's
thank
all.
you.
Yeah, that's all from us. Thank you.